I hope that we haven't permanently lost our colleagues here. Thank you all for coming. Before we begin with our official business, I'd like to acknowledge that our meetings in our neighborhoods here at UBC are on the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And I had some reminders, but I'll wait on the reminders until board members back. So we'll start with the approval of the agenda. I move that the board approve the January 21st, 2025 open session agenda as circulated. Got a seconder? Jake? All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. And then I move that the board approve the December 17th, 2024 open session meeting minutes as circulated. And I'll just note that they also include some online resolutions that were completed in late November and early December. The secondary to approve those minutes. Evan, any questions or discussion? All in favor? All right, motion passes. Thank you. And just as an announcement, so first of all, a reminder that we do have two board members who are appearing remotely. This is a partially online meeting, technically, and as well as that these meetings are broadcast to the wider public. With that in mind, I just ask that speakers, whenever possible, use a microphone, and a reminder that to speak into the microphone, at least the ones that are on the table, you press the button, and when you're done speaking, if you could press the button again to turn the microphone off. We can only have two microphones on at once, and so if too many buttons are pressed, then some people cannot speak. And then finally, just both online and here in the room, I will keep an eye out for hands. If you do wish to speak, just put up your hand, and I will try to get to people in the order that I see the hands go up, and I will certainly give all members an opportunity to speak and ask questions as needed. Okay, so with that, we will move on to external reports and presentations. And our first presentation is the Westbrook Place Neighborhood Plan Amendment Process presentation, and Joanne Croft, the Associate Director, Campus and Community Planning, and Madeline Zamar, the Engagement Manager of Campus and Community Planning, will give a presentation on this. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Eagle. Is the mic on? Is it on? Okay, great. Yeah, so thanks for having us. Myself and Madeline from Campus and Community Planning, really happy to be here to meet the new board, see some familiar faces and some new faces, and really look forward to working with this board going forward. And Madeline and I are here to provide some information on upcoming community engagement on phase 2 engagement for Westbrook Neighborhood Plan Update, focusing on the Westbrook South portion of the neighborhood that has been expanded through Campus Vision and the Land Use Plan Update. And yeah, so we're on the second phase of engagement. And just building on Eagle's land acknowledgement, want to let you know that campus planning is deepening our engagement with Musqueam through ongoing conversations. And over the next number of months, we actually have a bit of a tailored engagement process with them on Westbrook, as well as a number of other projects. And we're really looking forward to identifying opportunities to strengthen Musqueam presence in Westbrook Place neighborhood. So this is the agenda. I'll just give a brief update on the timeline, where we're at in the process and where we're going from here. Madeline will then talk about what we heard from the first phase of engagement, and then talk a little bit about our engagement approach going forward for the second phase. And then I'll come back with next steps. So we are in, as I mentioned, the second phase of engagement, and what we're calling it is sort of the key elements of the draft plan, the draft amended plan for Westbrook neighborhood. And we're starting on February 4th, going for 3 weeks. And that'll be really the key elements of the full draft plan amendment that we're also going to be coming back to the community with following February engagement, where we'll be presenting the full document with red line changes to the plan. So this phase, starting February 4th, is really going to be key elements, building on the preliminary directions that we presented in November of 2024, based on engagement input back then and further technical work. These key elements are really, you know, the foundation or the backbone of the plan for Westbrook South neighborhood. And we anticipate following that, based on that feedback, revising the draft plan and presenting to board for their consideration for approval in June. And we, in the next step slide, I can also talk a little bit about further engagement with the board through the next couple of weeks and months.
Hi, everyone. This good? So for 3 weeks, it was from October 29th to November 15th, we shared and asked for feedback on 4 preliminary directions for Westbrook Place South, and that will be part of the updated Westbrook Place neighborhood plan. And it was really focused on open spaces and parks, retail and amenities, housing and built form, and movement and connectivity. So we had community members who were primarily UBC faculty, staff, and students, as well as families who live in Westbrook Place. That was the majority of people who engaged with us. They participated in a workshop or a community conversation, attended an open house or a walking tour, or provided their feedback on a survey. So in total, it was over 750. We call them touch points because there's some overlap in people who participate in events and take the survey. So I'll summarize really briefly just some of the highlights of what we heard from engagement, and all of which has been used to inform the key elements of the draft plan, which we're going to share back in a couple weeks with the community. So I've grouped them into the areas that we got feedback on. So in terms of open spaces and parks, we really heard a diversity of preferences for open space and parks, ranging from a desire for more sort of quiet and calm spaces where people can relax, to spaces that are lively and dynamic, and that have more active recreation. So places for kind of informal pickup soccer, things like that, and also some sport courts. And also we met with quite a few youth through the process, and we heard from them their need for more spaces for teenagers to play. And there was lots of support for more naturalized parks that retain high value trees, maximize biodiversity, and include more indigenous and climate resilient planting. In terms of movement and connectivity, we heard that traffic, pedestrian safety, and flow and parking capacity are all significant concerns for community members, and people really support prioritizing the pedestrian experience and safety in the layouts of public spaces. And there's also a desire for more active infrastructure, like infrastructure for active types of transportation opportunities like cycling. And in terms of kind of the housing and built form, we heard a range of views on tower arrangement, number, and height, with a preference for maintaining the approach of positioning the towers along the forest edge, increasing neighborhood open space, using courtyards to increase social connection and access to outdoor amenities for residents, and also maximizing access to sunlight and ocean views. And in terms of public spaces and amenities, we heard kind of excitement for diverse neighborhood amenities to increase the types of amenities we have. And there was a strong support for more affordable neighborhood food options, especially a new grocery store. That was loud and clear. And then a strong support for community-oriented amenities and third spaces, like public libraries, repair spaces, workshops, things like that. And then there was some concern in terms of the scope of engagement. Some community members felt that there was limited scope of choices due to some of the land use decisions that have already been made through campus vision and the land use plan process. So in terms of, we took all that feedback. The team is finalizing the key elements of the updated plan. And so that's what we'll be sharing back with the community starting on February 4th. We have a 3-week period and many ways to engage. So we'll be sharing the key elements, and they really do reflect what we heard from the community, the public input on the 4 preliminary directions, as well as a bunch of technical analysis that's been happening over the past couple months. And so people can get involved in many different events, as well as taking a survey for a 3-week period. And then, as Joanne mentioned, feedback on the key elements. Feedback on the key elements will be taken into consideration to develop the full draft plan, and that will be available on our website for public comment, as well as certain targeted meetings we'll be having, including with the UNA board. And so I will pass it over to Joanne to just walk through the next steps, but we hope to see you all during the engagement period.
Thanks. So as this shows, we have a planned workshop with the Land Use Advisory Committee on the 29th, and that will be to advise the board. And we're coming back to the board in February for a workshop session, and where we can dive in deeper on some of the key elements. I know that there's some real interest in things like transportation and open space, ecology, so following all of that, we are going also to the property committee of the board as part of engagement, getting their input into the key elements, and following the draft plan presentation to the community and revisions to that based on input will then go to the board again in June for consideration for approval of the plan. And yes, also preceded by UNA board engagement as part of that, that phase. And that concludes our presentation. Just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what we're planning. Thanks.
Thank you both. And we can open the floor to questions if you have questions about either the process or the preliminary feedback that has been reported here today. Ron.
Given the provincial government's emphasis on density, is there a targeted range of what used to be called persons per acre years ago for the metric?
Yeah, thanks for that. Our land use plan actually has set the densities for all the neighborhoods. And so there is, for the Westbrook South area, the gross buildable area is around 2 million square feet. And the area of Westbrook South is around 9 hectares. So if you have a calculator, that would be 2 million square feet divided by 9 hectares, which anybody a math whiz here? This is in line with, I would say, transit-oriented densities, which I believe are around 150 people per acre. And please don't quote me on that, but I think if someone, can do the math, dividing 2 million by 9 hectares, it would give a good ratio for density. The overall floor space ratio, which is another way of calculating density, is in the area of 2 FSR or 2.2 FSR, which is consistent with several recent neighborhood developments on the west side of Vancouver.
2.6.
So we're looking somewhere around 300 people per acre.
300 people, okay, thank you.
Which are 2.2 acres in a hectare.
Other,
Well, sorry, actually, I just wanted to correct my math. So I was giving you the gross GBA, not the population. So the population of the new area is around 4,600 people. So that's what you would have to use as your.
That's 500 per hectare roughly then.
a lot of quick math going on.
Yeah, I think we'll need to check that.
But also, I think a lot of that information is in the land use plan, the broader land use plan that sets those limits.
That's right, and it's also going to be refreshed on. We'll refresh the information on the boards that we come out to the community. So all that, as well as some FAQs, will be available with all that information.
I have a question about teenager play spaces. Would you mind just briefly telling us what the teenagers had in mind by that?
Oh, it was, sorry, play spaces. I meant active recreation and like informal and formal. So like sport courts where they can basketball, tennis, things like that. But then also like lawn area where they can have pickup soccer, ultimate frisbee, things like that. And through one of the ways we engage is community conversations, which are 1 to 2 hour sessions with community groups. And so we meet with the UNA Youth Leadership Group and the UNA Preteen Leadership Group, and they always have amazing insights. And we also meet with Tapestry Seniors, so they give us like a totally different view of the neighborhood. And it's a way for us to really try to understand diversity of current experience and what people want for the future. So by play spaces, I meant recreational areas and also just hangout spots, covered, not covered, in the forest, out, like lots of, they don't have enough spaces for just hanging out and doing fun, active things together.
Michael?
Just wanted to ask a little bit more about the scope of engagement. It seems that the one bullet point that you got there was that there were concerns about the limited scope. I'm just wondering if you have, any plans for future engagement to sort of expand upon that scope. I was probably one of the people that had concerns about that, just because, student, parents, and working and 3 weeks was a very, very limited time period to find, the accommodations. And I know that you guys were great about babysitting, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons we always have a survey, is because, and we put detailed information on the website, is we know that sometimes a 3-week period isn't enough for you to be able to join one of the events. We try to have a diversity of events and try to offer things like childcare, honoraria for students, because we find that students, it's really hard for them to participate if they have work commitments, study commitments, so giving them a little incentive. But we know that it can be hard, and yes, it's tight timelines, but we work around the UBC Board of Governors timelines, and so that's kind of what we're constrained by. And so the survey is sort of the area where you can, you have 3 weeks to sort of read all the material, and we have the same kind of questions we ask in the other sorts of engagements we do that are part of the survey. So that's sort of the most accessible, easiest way to engage. But we know that it's more exciting to go to events, but also really hard for people.
Yeah, and just in terms of the technical scope, I think primarily what that was referring to was the parameters, the parameters that are established in the land use plan, which is the density, the amount of housing that were established through campus vision and the land use plan, and reflect 2.5 years of community engagement as well as board endorsement. So in terms of changing those parameters, that's beyond the scope of this process. However, the elements that we're engaging on, preliminary directions and key elements as well, in terms of transportation and open space and the quality of the spaces, that's an area of where we see a lot of opportunity for engagement. And it would be great if you can suggest ways for deeper engagement on those issues if that's something you're interested in.
You mentioned that some of the respondents had suggested a library branch, and I also have heard suggestions that a post office outlet or postal service outlet would be a really valuable addition in terms of services. And I'm wondering if that is within the scope of this planning process. In other words, those that require, I guess, third parties, so to speak. I suppose a grocery store does too. But yeah, I'm wondering,
what the process is for,
should we engage on this seriously? Because I think there is a lot of interest. So.
Totally, yeah. So we've allocated space around 30,000 square feet for commercial amenities, which would, we're anticipating a size grocery store around 10,000, 15,000 square feet, as well as an equal amount of smaller scale retail. And the process for selecting retail is managed through Properties Trust, and they manage the leases and they go through a process of soliciting interest. And Paul Young is here from Property, so you can chime in if I get anything wrong here. In terms of marketability, sort of market uptake, and obviously we want the businesses to be successful here, and I think they also have an interest in a unique offering of retail that does reflect local needs, and that's why we wanted to find out what people were interested in, and we're going to work with Properties Trust to try to make those interests reflect in the market choice of retail. In terms of I would say non-revenue generating retail, like community uses or post office or library branch, we are making space for flex uses, community uses, which are a bit of a different type, and so that's if we would need to find partners that have the resources to operate facilities and make them successful, but we would provide the space, a CRU in the building to do that. And so you'll see in the material we've got a few spaces identified where those opportunities could be explored.
As far as libraries go, there is a really big university nearby. So
no, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes people come to these meetings and don't understand. They throw things out. I think we should make everybody here aware that you can get a free library card with Vancouver Public Libraries, which we pay for. I think people come with these ideas, say, hey, you can walk down to West 10th and join that library. Also for the post office for 20 years has a policy, no standalone postal buildings anymore. You'd have to get them to agree to a licensor, and given that they're losing so much money. I think what has to happen here, when people come to these forums, they tend to throw out all kinds of crazy ideas. I kind of like to have a horse, but there's no stable here.
I'll just note that any postal outlet would likely involve retail. I don't think that anyone who suggested that would doubt that. So, yeah. Any other questions, Michael?
Just wanted to ask a question while we're on the Sandu. While we're on the subject, how is the selection of retail? What's the process of that? To clarify.
May I ask Paul Young to come up and explain that? Can you explain the process of retail selection?
So the neighborhood plan is really the container that allows these things to happen. The neighborhood plan isn't going to specify what uses would be included. That's a process that we have gone through on University Boulevard. We've gone through it here in Westbrook. The intention is always to get retailers who provide a good service to the neighborhood, who can survive. In many cases, we provide a reduced rent in order to make sure that they survive, or incentives to keep them here. Sometimes things don't work out, like the dry cleaner wasn't able to survive after COVID. Just people weren't weren't using dry cleaners. But typically the way that we find prospective retail tenants is through a representative who knows who's out there in terms of stores that are looking to open here. We like to give preference to local operations rather than national retailers. Think that a good local operator provides a better service to the community than, that's why we don't have a Tim Hortons or a McDonald's here. We've got other things which we feel better suit the neighborhood. When we build the space for commercial, for retail and amenities in Westbrook, we'll probably build it before we know actually what's going in there. And the people who, or to the extent that the population increases during that time, that will provide demand for those services. And some services may not be able to be supported until those 4,500 people have moved in. So it's too early to say what they'll be, but that's how we would approach it.
Sandy?
Yes, thank you, Igor. Thank you, UBC campus and community planning team. My question is, what impact of this plan for our existing residents and the community? For example, the positive or some negative. I understand that the density is for sure is increased. And how to balance the green place, public place with the building's distance. So that's questions from your professional perspective, how to solve. Let our residents understand and to cooperate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that will hopefully be explained with the engagement material that we're going to be presenting in a few weeks in terms of the building layouts, the open space arrangement, how high the buildings are, how they relate to the pedestrian realm, transportation and movement and connectivity, and the technical work that we're doing to ensure that it can be managed. Also, are working with biologists and engineers on rainwater management, managing, impacts of climate change, and working in alignment with our other policies, climate action plan, neighborhood climate action plan, and so on. So all that information hopefully will be available in the engagement materials. Thank you.
Are there any last questions before we move on? All right, thanks so much, and we'll look forward to the upcoming engagement at the Land Use Advisory Committee and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and it just happens that next is the UBC Campus and Community Planning Report. Harold, do you have anything you want to add to what was in the agenda package?
getting to my page here. I don't think I will spend too much time going over the content of the report that was included in your package. Maybe just a plug for some of our community events coming up that if you have young families, we have Kids Take Over UBC, which is a really great family event on Family Day. And the registration just opened up yesterday and it gets filled up pretty quick. So if you have friends with young kids or have young kids yourself, it's a great event. I hope to see all of you there.
Are there any questions for Carol about the report for the upcoming events? Okay. All right, and now we're going to move on to the Electoral Area A Director Monthly Report. And I'm going to give Jen McCutcheon, the Electoral Area A Director, a chance to introduce herself. And Jen, if you have any verbal report you want to make, you're very welcome to.
Thanks, Eagle. So good evening, everyone. And first of all, congratulations. This is my first time coming to a board meeting with the new board. So congratulations. And we do look forward to working with you all. Yeah, so I'm not sure how familiar you are with Electoral Area A. Within the local government structure within British Columbia, electoral areas are any part of the province that are not part of a municipality. So as you know, we're not municipality here at UBC, which means that under the provincial local government system, we fall in an electoral area. In Metro Vancouver, our regional district, we're so urbanized that all of the little pockets of land that are not part of some other municipality fall into one electoral area A, one electoral area, and that's this one. So we are lumped together, us within the UNA, as well as the University Endowment lands. This part of the peninsula are part of electoral area A, as well as a number of pockets of land. If you're driving from West Vancouver up to Lions Bay, there are communities there. Barnston Island is an agricultural island off of Surrey, and there's some other water access areas. So we all, from a local government perspective, are all part of the same area, and I'm your elected representative for that area. I live in Auckland, in UNA. And through that role, I sit on the Metro Vancouver Regional District Board, representing all of us, as well as on TransLink's Mayor's Council for Regional Transportation, and then a number of committees within the structures. So I put out a newsletter, not quite every month, but every few months, anyways, when there's information and news that comes from those various bodies. And I also try to attend these meetings when I can. I do have a standing conflict at this time on a Tuesday now, so I need to get out of that one to come here. But if you ever need to reach me, well, lots of people here have my email address, but Chris is probably the most the easiest official way to get in touch with me. I know when the last board started, I remember going for a walk with Eagle to sort of discuss different issues here. I would also, if you were interested, be happy to sort of give you a deeper dive into local governance and sort of where UNA and the electoral area fits, if that would be helpful. But probably we'd just start with a cup of coffee and a chat if anyone would like to dive more deeply. I am your representative on those boards, though, and you are representing our community, so I am always available to discuss any issues that are relevant to those groups. So that was my sort of introduction. I'm happy to take questions on that. In addition to the newsletter, as issues arise or as things arise, I do put on engagement sessions. Those started in this room before COVID and then went online for a number of years. The next one that is going to be coming up is going to be around dog management. This has come up more so within Pacific Spirit Park, which is part of Electoral Area A and managed by Metro Vancouver Regional District, which I'm part of. But also, as you'll hear later from Ragland and Isabel, and you've read in the report, does tie into dog management here within the UNA. And I think actually that that dog park is going to be a really helpful part of this. So on March 6th in the evening in this room, I haven't started advertising yet, but there's going to be an engagement session that looks at dog management on leash and leash optional areas within Pacific Spirit Park, as well as a chance for Wegland and Isabel to present back their latest plans for the dog park here in the UNA. So I encourage you to come to that or let anyone else that has opinions. I know there's a lot of opinions around dog management, especially in Pacific Spirit Park, and Metro Vancouver Park staff will be coming to present at that as well. So that's all. When I do put out a newsletter, you will get it through your package as well. I can sign you up to receive it directly in your inbox if that's something like that, but we will get it in your package as well. Happy to take questions now, and again, anytime you have questions on the template.
As a long-time subscriber to the newsletter, I can affirm that it is really informative and helpful and much appreciated by residents and board members, and so we'll look forward to that. Other questions for Jen? Yes, Ron?
Okay, living on Hampton Place, just backing onto the park area. So this is a metro park. And having just been in the course of being in the UK, what kind of input do we have to the management of this park? Because I look at it and I walk a dog in there on a leash. Frankly, I think the park is badly managed. I think I'll be very blunt. I think they're lazy people right in there. Okay, and I'm French, with Northern background. The word forest means managed woodlot. It does not mean wilderness. So I don't see a lot of good proactive management in that park. In fact, walking on Sunday, we notice an awful lot of areas of dead, deciduous, invasive trees. So there's going to be some sort of look at how to review this park. I mean, I think the dogs are the least of our worries in Pacific Spirit Park. I think the park here, ever since I moved there 20 years ago, I lived in Dunbar against the park.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot in there. So if you have specific concerns, you can send them to me and I can pass them on to staff at Metro Vancouver. That park has 4 million users a year, which has gone up exponentially since before COVID. And I'm not sure that the staffing levels have kept up, with that. Metro Vancouver Parks, I don't have it right with me, but their mandate isn't always to manage. One of the major aspects, they have sort of two sides to that. One is actually conservation. So it's not necessarily managing, it's protecting from a conservation angle. And then the other sort of main pillar is around access and providing access for people. So yeah, there's different types of parks are sort of managed in a different way. I also will just say that there are areas of the park that historically burnt down and then deciduous trees were planted. Deciduous trees have a much shorter lifespan, and those trees, for example, on the northern part down Salish Trail, right now it doesn't look very good because many of those trees have reached their lifespan. There's a lot of planting that goes on, but I think for the sake of your time, because it's a long meeting, I know, happy to engage on that one and pass on messages.
Jake?
Did you say 4 million people a year use that park?
4 million users in 2023. The second highest park, which was Capilano, had 1.2 million users. Yeah. Shocking. So as users, if you go in there many times, you're counted each time. So it's not people, but it's users.
Yeah, we back onto the park. We overlook the park, and I know there's a lot of users, but boy, 4 million, amazing.
There are a lot of access points to the park.
Yeah.
If you think.
Yeah,
So,
true.
Carol?
Jen, or maybe this is a question for UNA. Will your session be broadcast at all?
Yeah. Okay. We're going to encourage in person because it's an engagement session. It's easier to engage in person, but as is demonstrated tonight, this room's really great for.
Okay. Okay, thanks so much, Jen. It was great to have you reintroduce yourself, and we'll look forward to seeing you or your newsletter. So moving on to the January 2025 management report. And we'll go in order here. We'll start with the CAO's report. Paul.
Thank you very much. This January report represents work in December. It's a bit truncated, obviously, because of the holiday and vacation season. Lays out some of my activities. I guess the highlight in the time period really was the amount of time focused on the revisions to the UNA draft budget, which we'll talk about more specifically and in detail later on in preparation. That work in preparation for presentation to the Finance and Audit Committee. That's where a lot of the focus of my time was. And a couple of other topics that will come to committees in the not too distant future. But as always, happy to answer any questions you may have about
Jake.
Yeah, just out of interest, the use of the the front desk for the program and events registration, it like doubled from last year. Is that just obviously more people walking in? And
actually, when we get to the recreation section, maybe we do it section by section. So I do my little CAO song and dance first, and then we'll get into the meat, as it were. I'm just the appetizer.
Oh, yeah. And the order is following CAO, communications, recreation, operations, and then finance. Just to anticipate that. Any other questions or any questions for Paul? Okay, moving over to communications, and Glenda, welcome back, Glenda.
Hello, everybody follows the appetizer and the salad or the soup part. My report before you, I don't have a lot of stuff to highlight, just some developments on our website and also ushering the community consultation for the draft budget along as well with Dina and her team. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions on communications for Glenda? Evan?
I do see the calendar, the drop-in calendar is added to it. So right now, written from the website to see what activities are available in the open chain and some costs, like drop-in costs. I think that's great. Maybe in the future we can also update the design event, because right now the time slot is not enough. You see, like all the classes just stacked together.
Yeah, actually, we're in the process of moving away from the manual things on the calendar and automate it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to connect our website to the API of our program management system so that it's populating that calendar automatically and you can look as far ahead as you want. So we're in the process of doing that right now with our web team. The kind of the manual schedule that we have going on right now, that's been going on for a few months now. I would say like since the beginning of the summer. That was kind of just a temporary measure while we developed this feature of the website.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to recreation and Dave.
Main course. Good evening to the board. You have my report in front of you and I'm available for any questions. I did want to make a note. You have my report in front of you and I'm open to any questions. I did want to make a note under the recreation report. In meetings with UBC, we have the Invictus Games coming on February the 14th. In the report, it states that there's going to be major road closures. That has been updated and changed now to rolling road closures. So much like when the PM is, you'll be intersection to intersection for Duke of something Harry. I don't know what they're called. They're not apparently not allowed to call them Prince.
Other questions for the main course? Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, just general interest, the use of the front desk, the whole 2023 to 2024, just more people visiting, coming in.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of a lot of effects. It is with the rising population, but there's also pieces in there where when you're looking through the report, you'll notice things such as our bookings are down because what we've made available to everyone is a lot more drop-in programs. So that's going to bring more activity coming in. But we've also seen an increase in just the general attendance to the center, how much our front desk is used, and what we actually can do from the front desk with our parking and everything else.
I'm just looking at page 16 here. And I'm looking at the registration updates of the winter. It appears to be the registration as of January 2nd, we're down from 2,000 to 1,309 people. The wait list is down, everything else is down. Revenue is down, yet somewhere in the report they say we're 92% completed as of January 2nd. Can you care to elaborate, or are we dealing with a timing problem over Christmas, or is this a deliberate plan?
I can update that. So what that indicates is for us is we've moved a lot more into our drop-in programs. So with the drop-in programs, we don't provide registration for those. So as we've eliminated some of our regular programming that doesn't permit drop-ins, we've increased the amount of opportunities for people to come in and drop in, and that will lower our registered participant number.
So does that impact the revenue negatively?
Pending the type of courses, it can have an effect negatively, yes.
Just to be clear, though, the drop-in does require paying a fee, but that would not be in advance. That would be at the time of drop-in or registration for the drop-in.
That is correct.
Jacob?
Yeah, so is there a chance to hit or exceed the 100%? You said we're at 92 now. Do you feel that we'll get close to the 100% budgeted revenue?
Yes.
Kevin, do you still have a question? Or I can come back to you. While you're thinking, a question about the drop-in is, are all of the drop-in activities true drop-ins, or do you have to register a certain number of days in advance for some or all of them? And I know from pickleball experience that does require registration. I think it's 48 hours in advance, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm wondering if you could just briefly give us an update. And that relates to the very helpful information about drop-ins that's now available on the website. I'm wondering if it's clear to users when registration is required for drop-in as opposed to simply showing up and participating is possible.
Yes, it's a great question. Just to identify the terms of drop-in. So what we do is we operate 3 levels of drop-in programs. The first level is just a pure drop-in day of the event, such as our basketball, some of our badminton, stuff like that. That is no registration required. You come in, you do check in at the front desk because we only have limited number of spaces available. So you will have people coming in and they'll line up and that route. The second area of drop-in that we have is the registered drop-ins. So these are programs that we've seen ridiculous amounts of wait lists for and high demand for, and were identified in our recreation culture review. With those, to provide the opportunity of fairness, we did institute a registration that you'd have to register ahead of time. However, it's not a full 100% registration. We only register up to 80% of the spots, and when you have drop-in, if you're there on that day at that time available. Third level of drop-in is that if we were running a registered program and class capacity, let's say, is at 20, and it's mostly, this is the area when we're talking about things like yoga and other types of physical activity. If class registration is based at 20 and at 15 minutes past the hour or start of the program, there's still only 14 people in the class, they will open up 6 spots for drop-in for anyone that's in the building wanting to take that program on that day at that time.
Thanks so much. From Michael?
So it appears from the updates, biggest increase in revenue growth was music lessons at $10,000 from 2023. I know personally from trying to register my son for piano lessons that increase could probably be more than doubled. And it's a very small space that music takes up. And I'm just sort of like thinking about that from a space to revenue perspective. There's possible growth opportunity there. And also accommodating people who can't get their kids into lessons, which I've been one of them. So,
to answer that question, and thanks for pointing that out, our issue is actually with music lessons. Our issue is not space. We do have space available, and we do have space available at the barn as well, which we would try to encourage public. It's instructors, and the reason we were able to increase our revenue, greatly, was the fact that we did add 2 new instructors to come into the program. And as you can see, the demand is there. So we're constantly searching for music instructors to come in.
So I have Sandy next and then Evan.
Thank you, Igor. I have 2 questions. First is about the suggestion box. We will cancel this one. We will try a new one. I would like to understand the logistics behind this way. From the front desk, the employees collect the comments from our residents. What is the logistics behind this one? Why do you think this one is more efficient? This is first question. Second one is regarding our volunteer appreciation party. I noticed that totally adult and young volunteer totally is 40 joined the appreciation party. Totally we have around 300 volunteers. Is it right? Only 40 people joined, lower than we anticipated. I hope all volunteers can join the appreciation party. So that is 2 questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy, for pointing those out. The suggestion box, after discussions with yourself when we first met as a board, we decided to remove the suggestion box off the front desk to try a secondary trial of anyone with a suggestion would produce it to the front desk staff, and front desk staff would then take it to the actual staff member so that we'd have a quicker response, and we wouldn't be having anything slide by, such as not checking the box. We're doing that as a trial basis as well as looking at other options available to us. I hope that answers that question. Question 2, volunteer appreciation. This is a challenging one for us. We do have a large number of volunteers, as you've stated. We do host 4 volunteer appreciation events throughout the year. Our average attendance is approximately anywhere from 30 to 50 people. And we differ in each type that we do. We do a barbecue, we do a dinner. We did poll our volunteers a year ago, asking if they wanted to do one large event recognizing all volunteers. That came back with a resounding no. They would rather have smaller every term, something small to get everybody in and have discussions, with our most recent one happening in mid-December.
Evan?
How do I just bring everybody back to see the statistics. Page 16. I just want to look at the registered participants. The number dropped down quite a bit compared to last year, both in the winter 2025 and the green box fall 2024. And also compared to the last page, the drop-in number. Sport drop-in, open gym drop-in, and vegetarian front desk, both those numbers increasing dramatically. I think the reason probably because like many people for example, if they want to register for a class like tennis or something, instead of register the program, they just go drop in. The hour is really it's not continuous, I think this also explains the total revenue. We have a decreasing the revenue. Winter 2025 on page 16. Last year is 200,000. This year is somehow 185,000. Yeah. So my last question, sorry, my next question is compared to the categories. How come the camps, right? The winter 2024 we have 18,000, but this winter we will have 4,000. It's decreased quite a bit. And compare the music and education, seems like more students, more people are learning music, and less people are learning the academic education. Do you have some comment on this?
Just before I turn it over to Dave, I do want to point out for the data, it says winter, but it's only part of the winter that's been completed. So it is to date, January 2nd. We still have more of the winter programs yet to go. So the revenue number will reflect that when we get and complete the winter term. So at this point, it's a snapshot in time. In terms of the drop-ins, I think you heard from Dave earlier, and he'll reemphasize that we've done a bit of a shift based on demand to more drop-in programs from registration programs. So that has something to do with that dramatic change in the participation at drop-in programs versus participation. And then the last question, Dave, I'll let you respond.
Thank you for that, Paul. Yeah, to update everybody on camps, we took a hit on camps, and what I can tell you is that when we set our prices for camps registration, it was on par with the City of Vancouver and local community centers. The province then provided funding, and they all lowered their rates. And we don't get that type of funding. We're not qualified for it. And as a result, what we saw was low registration for the first month. We made an adjustment to all of our camp pricing, and then at that point, we saw the camps sell out for the second half.
Are there any other questions on recreation? Yeah, Evan.
So I have one more question regarding the volunteer. I do see we have lots of distributed volunteers in our community. Actually, we have done a wonderful job. Like we hold some big events, and also some volunteers they organize the weekly based, like some poker club or something. Yeah, some like activity of or there isn't actually involved. But I also have a question. It's like those volunteer. Is like everybody can be the volunteer leader? It's like how do you choose like which one volunteers could be the leader? They could lead a group. They could gather resources and help support from our UNA. And also, how do you monitor or supervise them? Because for example, if some people they lead a activity group, and residents who want to play poker, they just find that people to join that group. But these people also have a control, right? We want to give the same opportunity to all the residents, not support a small group. They just have their own fun, right?
I'll give David a chance to respond very quickly to that, and then I'll urge all of us, if we do have more questions about the specifics of how the program's run and whatnot, that we can also carry on further conversation outside of me. Dave?
Just to address that really quick, anyone wishing to become a leader in the volunteer category, we do have a process and a screening system that is in place that does require criminal record search. It also then is supported by 4 different positions within recreation, dividing those into seniors, to youth, to newcomers, and as well as adult volunteers.
Great. Thank you. I think with that, we'll move on to operations and Lakeland.
Thank you, Eagle. So, good evening, everyone. The report is before you and happy to answer any questions for the report. Just one highlight in terms of the report is more related to some of the links that I include in the emergency planning and response sessions. So within the sessions, there are a few links that I would like to put emphasis on for our residents, especially to download. That's including personal emergency preparedness guidelines. A lot of good work has been put in there by EBC Risk and Services. It talks about how residents and the type of materials residents should prepare for the emergency should something happen. And we also do a workshop on a recurring basis to provide a personal emergency preparedness in the Westbrook Community Center. So stay tuned on that. And finally, in terms of this report, another link that I would like to mention is a link that is provided in Jen's newsletter that is coming from July 2023, which is specifically related about fire emergencies within the Pacific Spirit Park. Within this video, there were a number of key stakeholders that were participated, and there's a lot of good information shared there. And that's it from me. Happy to answer any questions. Okay.
Yeah, I have one question. Just if you can clarify on page 50 of the road and sidewalk infrastructure maintenance report, you state there's transition from what has been an ad hoc.
Sorry, we're not yet at that part of the meeting. I think, am I correct, Wegland? That's a separate report.
Yes, a separate report, correct.
Oh, okay.
So just apologies. So this is on the management report only, and we will.
Okay.
We will. I think in terms of the agenda, that's coming up within first dog park,
yeah,
and then that. So soon. But I think if you could hold off. Are there any questions? Yeah, Michael.
I guess it's maybe more of a comment. I mean, just given what we saw in LA a couple weeks ago, there is a lot of this information out there, and I know that we have some of it. UBC has some of it. Jen McCutcheon has some of it. I think it'd be really great to maybe from a communication standpoint, figure out some way to. I know that there's a lot of members of the UNA who are talking about it right now, and if we could bring all that information into one place, maybe publish it in the residence, maybe put it on the website, just so that people feel like they have a little bit more support right now. I mean, I personally have a family and friends who lost homes, so it's very much on my mind, and I don't even know where to find resources. So it'd just be good to have all that distilled, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. So that's definitely noted. One thing that we are working with UBC Risk Department is related to the communications. How can we provide a more focused communication for residents as well as strata groups? So it's a work in progress. From my understanding, they are working with their communications team for the development and updates of their website and materials. So as soon as I have more information coming back from UBC, happy to report back to the board.
Any other questions on the operations report? Folks, moving on to finance and Athena.
Good. Good evening, everyone. The main course always takes much longer. I got that. So my report is before you. Guarantee you will hear a lot from me from the rest of the evening. So happy to answer any questions.
Yes. So are there any questions for Athena's just on the management report? We'll have the budget coming up in a separate item later. Okay, not hearing, we will move on to the UNA Dog Park public consultation report, and that's back to Wegland to introduce it, and Isabel is also involved. So I'll turn this over to you to introduce the report and ask questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eagle. I'm happy to have Isabel join us today. So the report is before you. And in terms of the dog park engagement process, I will provide a very high level in terms of some of the engagement processes as well as metrics. And then Isabel will be providing more detailed information about the responses, the written responses. So in terms of the public engagement process, it is an approximately 6-week process. So it includes a number of initiatives that we do. For example, like open houses, we also have provided an online survey. Within this engagement, we are able to provide some key metrics in terms of survey. We have approximately 277 respondents. And during the open house, we with the staff support open house, we were able to engage 113 community conversations to touch base on the dog park design, the residents' concerns, and things around the dog park itself. So what we heard from the dog park engagement process, I will go over more of the qualitative data. So in terms of the survey, we have 69% of the respondents, they are coming from Westbrook area, while approximately 15% of the respondents are coming from Hampton Place. And then in terms of the respondents, we have 61% that are dog owners, and then generally from our respondents, they are very supportive with the dog park that is proposed in the Westbrook area, with 60% that is strongly agreed, while another 10% that are agreed. And speaking of from a high level in terms of the layout and design of the dog park, generally the respondents are supportive with the current layout, and especially with the separation of the large and dog park design. And finally, one of our main purpose of this survey is to gauge what type of features in the dog park that our residents really want. So in terms of the features, ranking from the high, the most wanted, to the top 3 most wanted will be the shading structures. The next one will be pet trees, and also the third will be sitting elements. And the reason why we are asking for this information is we would like to include as much desirable features into the dog park design down the road. And with that, I will have Isabel to go over more about the written responses.
Hello, everyone. So I'll just give a quick overview of some of the written responses we received, and these are responses primarily that we received from the survey. So the majority of the responses we received were quite positive. We received a lot of support for the dog park and people appreciating the initiative. We did also receive some opposition to it, which is always expected, and many people cited alternative priorities like facilities for children or other community uses for the space. There were some concerns around safety and noise, and the central location was proposed. Another key theme that kind of came out with design and amenities suggestions. So people were very wanted to be heard in terms of what they wanted to see in the space. So that's as we saw shade structures, there's a need for water for people and for dogs. And then we also heard a lot about seeing the dog park as a valuable kind of social hub for both dogs and people. So having the design offered just for dogs, but addressing the community aspect as well. And I'll quickly touch on Just some of the key community concerns that we heard, because we do want to try our best to address all the concerns at the get-go. One key community concern was safety and separation. So the emphasis on fencing, double-gated entries, especially for the small and large dog spaces. We also heard about design features, so a lot of calls for shading and water access. We heard a bit about the impact on neighbors, so some concerns about traffic congestion and proximity to children's play areas. And then we also heard the need for accountability for dog owners, whether that's through rules, education, signage. Yeah, and the report will address many of these concerns.
So finally, just going to the next step. So in terms of the high-level timeline, is we are currently working with the landscape architect based on the community feedback and also based on the project budget that we were targeted for, and we are hoping to present back to the board with a refined design in the coming February board meeting. And going from there, if we were able to get green lights, then the next step would be about undertaking the Metro Vancouver Community Works Fund and the UBC permit application process. So that's it from here, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wegland and Isabel. And I'll just say that this is coming after a long process working with UBC, the previous board, and the landscape architect, and the community members as well. And I appreciate I think this is a model consultation that the UNA hasn't done quite in this way before. And it's really great the work that you put into it, and appreciate the report very much. And with that, I'll open things up to questions. Ron?
Okay, I'm going to predicate this on the fact that I am a dog owner. I have a California refugee that came before the fires. Okay, I have a list of very quick questions here, very brief. How was the $200,000 cost estimate put together?
So the 200,000 cost estimate, we are working with the landscape architect based on the initial high-level design, the layout that we presented at the engagement process. So based on the general cost, like fencing, materials, and things like that.
Is it possible to get a copy of it?
At this moment, it's more of a high-level estimate, so I can work with Paul and the team to go through.
So just to provide some context to this board, what we provided to the previous board to get the direction to undergo engagement was to develop, as I think Wegland described, very schematic design, and our consultant provided a equally schematic cost estimate for the purposes of establishing a budget for the board to be aware of in making a decision to move forward. This process following the engagement has a lot of design refinement to be done, and the establishment of higher level cost estimate that will then allow us to make applications for funding and the like. So the number that was used, the $230,000 plus, or $200,000 plus contingency, was really very much in the industry would be called a Class D estimate, and we'll continue to refine that as we go.
Having the Vancouver dog license, do we actually have dog licenses out here?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a reference, having lived in Montreal for 11 years. And there was a fellow by the name of Percy Molson, one of the famous Molson family. And one of the oldest parts of Montreal is an area called the Golden Mile. It's where all the rich people of Canada lived before World War II. Some beautiful big old Gilded Age buildings that you'd see in New York State. And he took a piece of property, because they're building condos, and he muled it, and he put them down to the side so people could come and take their dogs there. put money aside for operating costs, but you have to buy an annual fee. So if we contemplate any plans on operating this, would we have an annual fee for people to use it, make sure, not everybody comes, because it has to be paid for.
That hasn't been part of the discussion with the previous board in making sort of a membership kind of and limiting access to some way, shape, or form based on that. The operations won't be a significant increase to our operational costs. It's really about dealing with garbage issues, which we already deal with in the neighborhoods. But the membership piece hasn't been part of it. There has been the early discussions around additional regulation around dogs in the neighborhoods, and that could be something that the board considers coming out of this. The previous board established the priority of dog park first, regulation discussion to follow, and that's the process that we've been following today.
Well, we're putting regulations together. I strongly recommend that we put together an annual fee, because most dog owners don't flinch at paying this kind of money. You have to go to any pet store to see the cost of some of the animal food. It's more expensive than filet mignon. And my final question is, how confident are you in getting the money from Metro Vancouver? Because I notice the plan is to get a significant amount of funding from Metro Vancouver for this park.
We're reasonably confident. We've had preliminary discussions, and Jen McCutcheon happens to be here this evening, and Jen will be our primary contact in kind of rolling this through the process. But in our preliminary discussions, there were no concerns about the scope, size of the request, or whether it would be eligible or not. So we have a fairly high confidence level.
Either Paul or Jen, would you mind filling us all in or reminding us of what the community works fund is, and the terms and the kind of uses that it can be made of it?
Sure.
Yeah, so this, as Eagle just alluded to, this money will come from this Community Works Fund, which is, it comes from gas tax, but it's allocated each year specifically for UNA and UBC. So it's this body's money to use in a way that fits the criteria. Now, Eagle, I don't have the criteria off the top of my head, but I don't know if you can help me out there.
It's about recreation facilities, sustainability, emergencies related. So there are a number of different categories that's eligible. And dog park, as my understanding, and also working with the Community Works Fund representative, is part of the eligible criteria in terms of the funding.
And just to confirm what Paul and Michael just said there, it has been checked with Metro Vancouver staff. It still needs to go through the board, but from my perspective, so long as this board is okay with it and consultation is done, I see no.
Great, thank you. Carol.
I just wanted to note, I think that pending the board's approval on next steps, the Community Works Fund process with Metro Vancouver, I think the earliest that we could get to the electoral area committee for approval is May 15th, Jen. So noting that. And campus and community planning will make sure that the Vancouver School Board is aware. We have already let them know that this process is underway, but this dog park is situated on the future site of the school. So just to be fully transparent about that happening.
Are there any more questions about the dog park report? Right. My understanding is that at this time, there's no further action needed on the part of the UNA board, but that once the plan is further refined with landscape architect and the costing is done, financing is organized, at that point, then it can come back to this board for our approval. Am I correct about that in terms of process?
That is correct. So the plan is for the February board meeting. I will come back with a refined design with a budget for the park.
Okay, so it's about 7 and there is dinner waiting for us. And so I think given that our next 2 agenda items are quite significant in size, I think taking a break for dinner now is a good idea. So I'd like to call approximately, 15 minutes? Is that what we normally do? 15 minutes. So we'll reconvene at 7:10 and dinner is available to anyone who's interested through the doors here. I'll turn things over to Wayland to say a few words about that report, and then we can have questions.
Thank you very much, Hugo. So the report is before you, and then happy to answer any questions about the report. Just a little bit background of the report is with the recent discussion and interest in terms of the road and sidewalk infrastructure repair and maintenance, I just want to use this report to provide some context and background in terms of the recent change of, for example, the management responsibility of the UNA, as well as something related to neighbors, recently neighbors agreement. And then finally, what's the next step? So a bit of a background in terms of municipal services management before and after April 2023. So before April 2023, the UNA contracted UBC Property Trust for managing and the operations of municipal like services, for example, road repair, managing of landscaping. And in terms of the repair, they are mainly coming in from a ticket, for example, like an email or phone call reporting on issues. So most of the work addressing more of an ad hoc basis. And since 2023, the UNA has taken over the administration, management, and the operation of municipal services. And at the same time, because of the planned handover from UBC PTA, we also hire additional staff resources to support the operations. And with that, we are able to provide a more proactive management approach when it comes to repairs, especially thinking about sidewalk and road. And then going fast forward into neighbors agreement. So the neighbors agreement, as mentioned by one of the board member, that is still not right. It's still pretty wet, even though it's been approved back in December. So there is some changes in terms of how the infrastructure is being managed, thinking from a replacement perspective. So the UNA will continue to be responsible for maintenance and repair of the road, sidewalk, and path. While thinking about the larger replacement projects like repaving and full rehabilitations, that will go to the UBC with the newly established NA Agreement 2024. And in terms of how to fund those projects, typically for the larger project, that would be funded by reserve and mainly related to the capital and infrastructure reserve. And looking at the new neighbors agreement and the new responsibility between the UNA and the UBC, so there are works that has been started in terms of discussion of 2025 and 2026 fiscal related to the roadway repair project. Because in this draft fiscal budget, we have presented a significant amount of money for the to look at the replacement or the repair of Chancellor Place as well as Hampton Place. And with that in mind, the UNA has already started setting up meetings with UBC key stakeholders and our partners, for example, Carroll, transportation engineers, the department, as well as municipal services. So the initial meeting has started, and then more on-site visits to scope out the work in terms of what will be included and planned for this year project will be taking place next week. And as soon as we have more information coming out from the meetings, I will be happy to bring it back to the board for more information. And that's from me. Happy to answer any questions.
Jake?
Yeah, thanks, Wayland. On page 50, I just wanted you to kind of clarify. You commented that the transition from what has been an ad hoc approach to infrastructure repair and replacement to a planned approach. Certainly for replacement, major repairs, it should be a planned approach. That's obviously more efficient, but will the planned approach slow the minor repair? You know, some of the potholes and the like, will that process slow up? I'm not sure it's an either or, but a combination is, I think, the most efficient.
In terms of, thank you so much for, Jay, for bringing that up. So in terms of pothole, we will be more proactive, thinking about some of the pothole that we noticed in Hampton area. So the plan is working with our municipal team, because to be honest, working with our municipal team, it also takes them time to adjust with taking more responsibility to do road repairs, because it's not typically their specialties. So it takes time to bring them up to speed. And having said that, with this year, we are able to work out, to plan out the process of looking after the Hampton Place, the potholes in the meantime, before the full repair. And also thinking about from a plan approach, we will do more proactive walk around site visits and inspections to make sure the road condition is in a good state. So that's where the plan approach is. But having said that, whenever we receive a pothole request or report, we will also refer that as an ad hoc basis too.
Ron?
A few questions here. Yes, last week I see there were some cold patches done in Hampton Place, which I understand that you're going to replace with pavers when the get better defined. Was there only patching on Hampton Place, or was there patching as well in other locations?
Thank you, Ron. So yes, there is also patching in Westwood area, particularly outside Colonial Park, where there's a large pothole developed. So the patching is applied and then we are also continue to follow up with the Hampton Place, especially with the trench that is in the East Hampton. That's in the plan, and then we are just waiting for the material to arrive.
The cost of all this patching, is that UNA or UBC?
Sorry, which crosswalk?
All this patching that's currently going on, whose cost responsibility is that?
That is under the UNA, because it's within the UNA jurisdiction and the roadway that we manage.
Okay.
Jay? Oh, sorry.
Ron?
Yeah,
Ron, are you still going?
I still got a few questions.
All right.
Okay. You're having a meeting next week with UBC reps. Are you going to be doing a walk around, going to detail inventory street by street, doing some sort of report as conditions?
Yes, so we're doing a walk around with the UBC teams, and then what we will do is we will highlight and flag and also document issues that we will need to get into, and then to provide scope down the road in terms of the larger project.
Just have one more question. It's probably a bit early, but have we got any ballpark idea what sort of cost we're looking at this year between UBC and UNA?
It's a little bit too early to provide, to have the number, and as soon as we have the scope, then we will have a more clear number in terms of what the cost will be like.
Thank you. And Wayland, can you just clarify for the larger projects, that is funds that come from the Neighbors Fund Infrastructure Replacement Reserve?
Correct.
It's technically not within the UNA's budget. However, those are funds that are supported by the neighbors levy. Maybe I've already clarified what I was asking. Is there anything else to add?
You answered your own question.
I think you answered the question very well. These larger projects are out of the infrastructure fund, reserve fund, versus our ongoing annual kind of capital repair.
Okay, I had Jake next.
Yeah, just a clarification. We've heard Hampton Place a number of times of getting potholes repaired. It's not because we're sitting on the board here, but because it's one of the older neighborhoods. The crews that do this repair work, are they all UBC crews or are they contractors?
So they are the UNA contractors, particularly is a Badger Earthworks that they are providing the municipal services for.
They just do it all, those Badger people. Carol?
Just to clarify though, for the larger repaid rehab projects, we go through a process to explore who the right contractor would be.
Yeah, thanks.
Michael?
I'm just wondering, is it's on my mind right now because it's out there, but the annual sort of ice salting, is that part of the UNA's purview?
For ice sorting, ice removal on the sidewalk, yes, but for the roadway, that is under the UNC, responsibility to provide salt and ice removal for the roadway in the UNA.
Gotcha. And I'm just wondering, there was a report just released regarding the environmental impact of salt and salmon habitats. I'm just wondering if there's sort of a review underway of best practices. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of salt in areas when, I know that a brine will do just as well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We actually have some discussion with our partner UBC as well as ESB, thinking about all this salt overspreading in the area too. So definitely it is something that we are aware of. We are looking into that. But one thing that I would like to share is that it will also require capital investment for having the brine spreader and all the technologies to be able to support it. In terms from our team perspective, we are definitely keen into moving to a brine solution that which will provide a much better and safer solutions for all.
Are there any more questions for now about the maintenance of the roads and other infrastructure? Yeah, Paul.
I think it's important, and in the conversations that I've had, particularly with Ron and Jake about the roads issue at the Finance and Audit Committee, the processes leading up to NA 2024 were very much ad hoc and I think unplanned. And NA 2024 really sets a new stage and foundation for us to incrementally change that. And that's part of this work that we're doing right now, scoping properly the refurbishment of in Hampton and Chancellor with UBC, and establishing projects for the next fiscal that would be funded out of those larger reserves. But also over the longer term, there is requirements agreement under the NE 2024 that there will be some assessment work and undertaken by UBC for the roadways and sidewalks that will then allow us to do a really proper capital planning approach to things in consultation with UBC. So UBC knows when larger projects might be coming. We know better when some of the smaller projects could be coming, and we can have a better discussion about how the funding of those projects is shared, whether it's out of the big reserve or whether it's out of UNA's own reserves because it's a priority that we want to talk to the board about, or out of our smaller capital program that's in our annual budget. So the future, I think, is quite bright for this. It's that we've had a history of this kind of ad hoc approach that we're trying to work our way out of. So over the next few years, I think we'll be a much better place.
Maybe I will finally just add one point after Paul is it's still a lot for us to unpack between the UNA and UBC. And I believe, like Paul said, there is a very positive future down the road once both parties are able to sort out in terms of what is the best approach processes going forward with the roadways infrastructure replacement.
I'll just add, I appreciate that in this moment of transition and evaluation, how the UNA has been able to move forward to patch the potholes, and keeping in mind that yes, we continue to have an ad hoc but responsive approach to small scale repairs. So, thank you. Anything else? All right, so moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee update, and the first and by far largest item on the agenda there is the second draft of the fiscal year 2025-26 UNA annual budget. And turn things over to Athena to introduce that report and the draft budget. And I'll just say that after Athena has completed her report, that we'll have a motion to, as is on the agenda regarding the publication of the draft, and then we'll have discussion.
Hi, good evening, board. Sorry.
Excuse me,
They-
just one thing. It should be noted, it was not noted in the agenda that the meeting last week of the Finance Committee recommended that this budget be adopted. That should be noted here.
Should be in the report, but if it's not, then it's duly noted. Thank you.
We have it in the recommendation, that it should be in the recommendation that's on page 2.
Wait, yeah, thank you, Ron. The second draft of budget is before you. I wanted to just highlight a few things. First of all, in terms of the operation budget, thank you very much for the big help from UBC. I think this morning I received the confirmation and a letter from them to confirm that the support of 590,000 from PP is in place. So that is very good. Yeah, I think it's happened in a very perfect timing, especially now we are voting to get the budget getting published. And then the second one is I want to bring in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Thank you, the Finance Committee Audit Chair, and then also Ron, and then the rest of the committee, that they go through a lot of effort and then have a lot of questions, I think, to address. So I'm gonna, for those major ones, I'm gonna just highlight it here so everybody kind of have an idea. There is some question regarding to the transparency, because the neighbors levy for this year is projected for 10.6 million. And there actually is a lot of work between UBC and UNA, and then with a lot of factor being put into that. There will be another report coming. I'm currently working with UBC to create a report to provide more transparency, so you know. So, but definitely it's not a number that it just it's like by Athena. I think that sounds good. I think there's a lot of work, a lot of research, and a lot of statistic has been done behind the scenes. So just want to bring that to the attention of the board. And then the second one is like in terms of some major road repairs that we have already mentioned that in the previous report. So those capital project or infrastructure project are not part of our budget. So as what we mentioned before, so this budget is strictly related to the UNA related only, and then the money withdrawal from the reserve that we refer to this budget called capital reserve is strictly from the UNA capital reserve. Right now, currently, we're sitting at about $1.1 billion. Another one that I wanted to make that very clear is the next step for public consultation. We have also gone through with the Finance and Audit Committee the website, and also there is a package that's available that if the board is good to go for the budget to go public consultation, it will be posted tomorrow, and then for a period of 2 weeks, and then they will have all the feedback. I will consolidate it and then present it to bring it back to the Finance and Audit Committee in February, and also to the board. And I think other than that, there are changes compared to the first draft, especially a lot has to do with the neighbors levy section, but I have already put that in further details and put that in the notes and explanation. Happy to answer any question. As what Ron has mentioned, I think the Finance and Audit Committee do recommend the budget to go to public for feedback. So I think without further delay, I will let the Finance and Audit Committee chair to speak to that.
Great. Yeah. Jake, if you want to speak to the recommendation of the committee, and then if you'd like to make the motion, this would be a good time.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Athena. Thank the team too for all the work and having to make those changes from draft 1 to draft 2. As Athena mentioned, Finance Committee did have a meeting with the finance team. Ron was there and Yanbo was there virtually. We asked a lot of questions. We got a lot of answers. Some more questions, and certainly we got lots of answers and some clarity to some of the things that we brought forward. And the finance committee is at the point where we would recommend taking this to the next stage. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the publication of the second draft of the fiscal year 26 budget for public consultation.
Seconded. 2025, 26. Okay. Seconded by Ron. Okay. Okay. And with that, we can open up discussion. And I saw something on the screen. Okay, so no, we're good. Okay, so now is an opportunity to ask questions or to otherwise make comments. Sandy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, our finance team and also financial committee for making the second draft. I thought it very good. Comparing to the first one, some true numbers finally got out. I have two questions. First is regarding the professional fee. 2020, the page is page 72. It's about the professional fee, audit fee, $22,000. So that one, I'm not sure if it is already been included in the UBC administration fee, like 87,000, or it's separated. We need to pay by UNA is 22,000. I thought the note regarding the UBC administration fee, it include the audit fee, but it's still separate in UNA's budget. So that is first question. What is the audit fee included in our budget? Second one is how to sign the contract. For example, the page 69 on the public realm and parks maintenance, the budget will be $20,000 over for 2025. I'm wondering, do we have some quota, like check, or we have some the vendor for example, over $8,000, perhaps we will have some three vendors to provide the code, and we compare them. So that is the question on the contract signing. Thank you.
Happy to answer your question. Sandy, just to make that very clear, as the solar dioxide is also in the neighbors agreement, our books is also subject for audit. So the neighbors levy is a separate book, so the UNA book needs to audit. So that's why we need to have an audit fee. So it's part of the UNA expenses that we need to bear. So that's my first answer. In terms of the second question that you have, in regard to the $1.05 million, that amount is in regards to I would say maybe one or two contractors. Redmond can help me to answer it later. But actually, there's two questions that you have. How do we find a contractor? So all major contractors go through proper process that we need to find at least 2 or 3 contractors and we compare the price and then find the best quote out of that. But this one is a very specific one. So I will probably, as what Redmond just mentioned, that we took over DCPT and then do all the common area maintenance. So that cases is a little bit more specific. So maybe I will let Redmond to answer that one. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Athena. So in terms of the public landscaping municipal crew, as mentioned in the earlier report, it was handed over as the transition process where the UNA taking over to provide, manage the operations and administration of the municipal services back in 2023 April. So at this moment, we are continuing with the previous contractor that was hired by the BC Property Trust. But having said that, down the road, as things moving on or as our needs may change. If there's any changes in terms of contractors, we will certainly go through a RFP process. Maybe just thinking about an RFP process, for example, is the Gentalio cleaning project or process that is went through a RFP, I would say approximately 1.5 years ago. So for that process, because of the RFP, we are able to get a very competitive and also good service provider coming in. And thinking from a board perspective, for a quote or budget that is over $100,000, my understanding is that it will need a board approval. So information will be reported and sent to the board as well.
Okay, Michael.
Can I just provide some clarity? So your question around the administration fee, that's a fee that under the neighbors agreement, the UNA pays to UBC or their work in administering and working on through the neighbors agreement with UNA. That audit, that financial audit is for the levy, it's separate. The UNA as a nonprofit, as Athena noted, we have our own audit of our own financial operations, and that's undertaken annually, and that's the amount that you see in our budget for a financial audit. There are two separate audits. One's done by UBC for the levy that's reported to the UNA. One is done for the UNA board by staff for the UNA specifically. In terms of contracts, we have contracts in place with our contractors. We do replace them periodically depending on the timelines for the contracts. And as Wegley pointed out, there are limits within the UNA policies as to what must be approved by the UNA board. And as we do those renewals, those contracts will come forward to the board for approval.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah, I just to follow up on the common area maintenance support from the UBC Properties Trust. What was the reason given for the decrease in $40,000 compared to the first draft?
So this common area maintenance item was something that was a funding vehicle that was provided by and is continued to be provided by the Properties Trust to support the transition of the UNA to undertaking full responsibility. And clearly, the Properties Trust also has an interest in ensuring that those common areas are maintained at a level that helps in their sales and promotion of the neighborhoods. There wasn't, as part of it, there isn't an agreement, but there was an understanding that common area maintenance piece would decline over time as the levy increased and as the UNA became more and more capable of undertaking work. We don't have a specific agreement, and we don't know necessarily what that decline looks like over time. It's outside of the neighbors agreement, unwritten agreement between the UNA and UBC and Properties Trust, and is something that we have to have some additional conversations on about laying out a little bit more specificity about what that looks like over time, so we're able to budget more accurately of what the decline might look like. So it's something that wasn't discussed as part of the neighbors agreement negotiations and is a piece of that kind of collaboration between the parties that we need to get a little bit more firm and a little bit more detail around.
Carol, why don't you speak specifically to that, and then we'll turn to Jake.
I just wanted to comment also on the way that it's framed in the report. I wouldn't call it a reduction from the first draft of the budget to this draft. It was a placeholder number that was put in there that had not been confirmed by UBC Properties Trust yet. So to Paul's point, it tapers down over time to account for increased revenue growth from more development and more money going into the services levy, reduction in landscape standards that were negotiated through the neighbors agreement, and then reducing that support and tapering down over time. So that's a commitment A letter was received this morning. I think what we can probably do is try to get that number earlier so that it can inform the early phase of budget development, so we don't see this change in numbers between drafts.
And I can report that having received the formal letter this morning, with that final number of 590,000, I responded on behalf of the UNA asking for that information much earlier, say October, November, so that we can have some certainty in our budgeting. And just as a matter of courtesy, so I hope that message. Carol clearly received the message. I hope it's also received by UBC Properties Trust as well. Michael also received the message. Okay, Jake, you had a question?
More so a comment. I can assure the rest of the board that we asked a lot of detailed questions, many more than are coming across here. One in particular was the one that you just presented, Michael, with the same response. So Paul was good. He kept to his script on the responses, and what Carol was support to what Carol was saying, that through the increased general revenues from the increased neighborhoods, that particular common area cost was supposed to be reducing. So, and again, for everybody's benefit, what we're doing here today is just to go to the next step, which is to open up the budget to public consultation, which includes everybody here at this table that's part of UNA. So you have another 2 weeks to send in your questions and comments.
That's it. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, I'm going to repeat the motion. It is that the board approve the publication of the second draft of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget for public consultation. All those in favor? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I approve it for public consultation and engagement purposes.
Said yes.
All right. Having been assured that Yambo is also in favor, the motion passes unanimously. With that, we move down to the second item on the agenda from Finance and Audit Committee, and that is the Neighbors Fund Financial Statements Report. And Dina, if you want to just briefly introduce the report.
Yes, the neighbors agreement, neighbors fund financial statement is before you. Just to put things in perspective, because Sandy just asked that question. So the audit fee of that 80,000 is actually, this is part of the, for the future, this is part of the audit that will be done. So this is a UBC book, not the UNA, not the UNA book. Anyway, I would say I don't have any more to add unless you have any question, because that is pretty straightforward. It states all the required item, the reserve and all the balances are all there. I verified that. Yeah, I think everything seems fine to me. So unless you have any question, yeah.
Okay, are there any further questions on the audited financial statements? Okay, and with that, we move on to the Neighbors Fund Investment Report. And Athena, if you could briefly introduce that, and then maybe ask for the chair of the Finance Committee to make the motion.
We again, sorry. The Neighbors Fund investment, I just want to clarify that this fund actually is sitting in the Neighbors Fund right now and part of the reserve. Currently, we have, so in total, you can see from that, from page 95, that's the table that I have. In total, if you add it up, it's like $9 million, but in our reserve, we actually have more than that. So we are not actually investing all the money, which is the right thing to do, because you don't want to invest all the money. Like, for example, you want to have some contingency that you can actually do, and then fixing the road, you might need the money. things like that. So first of all, I just want to clarify that we have the money to invest, co-invest. Secondly, so this fund, if it's not invested, you might, just in case you might not go for it, is it will be sitting in an account in a journal in an account there that earning just normal interest. Because of the rate is actually declining as well. We all know that the interest rate is slowly dropping. So that's why I recommended to continue to lock in for another few years because we have this stacking structure of our fund mature every year. So we can still make another decision for next year if you decided not to have more fund to be invested. So so those are the logic behind it. I think I also wrote it in the in the report. So yeah, I think I will pass it on to Object and then to make the recommendation.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to that the board direct staff to instruct UBC Treasury to invest $3 million of the Neighbors Fund for a 3-year term.
Seconded by Ron. Okay, discussion, Jake.
Yeah, I think it's important that we get this locked up as soon as we can because bank interests, because interest rates are falling at this point, just to let it sit there and idle along at whatever, you know, the current account interest rate isn't a good policy to follow for this amount of money. So I think we, you know, need to get this.
Are there any questions? Okay, call a vote, and the motion is that the board directs staff to instruct UBC Treasury to invest $3 million in the Neighbors Fund for a 3-year term. All in favor? Sandy and Yanbo. I can see that. So the motion passes unanimously. And thank you, Athena. Thanks, Finance Committee, for setting that on the way here. And with that, that's the end of our regular business for the meeting. So I'm going to, it's just that last resolution. I'm going to go into the recommendation to move to a closed session. And after we vote on that, we'll take a 5-minute break until 7:55. And then we'll start a closed session. So I move that the board adjourn into a closed session to discuss matters that are or are related to discussions and dealings with other entities or individuals where disclosure of the information being discussed could be harmful to the UNA's interests. The receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, the appointment of individuals other than directors to the committee. From committee, that's something a little bit wrong with the wording of that. Working group or other body, and the approval of minutes for closed session or closed session of the board meeting. Is there a second? Michael wants a second. Yes. All in favor? Okay, motion carries. So we are adjourned until 7:55, and at 7:55 we'll reconvene for the closed session, which is not too long. So hopefully we'll be able to carry a reasonable color.
What? I thought you said there's so excited.